So mobile computing is a hype, but pretty dangerous. So the weaponry. The interviewee said that espionage capabilities generally enable foreign organizations, governments all over the world to eavesdrop communication links, mainly wide area networks. So this is especially dangerous because of the poor threat awareness. So not many people think about emails they send through the internet, if they are encrypted or not. And this is okay on a private sector maybe, but not in the financial services sector or the like. And also flood attacks. You don't really have to be afraid of flood attacks if you have high-speed redundant connectivity, but in a small and medium-sized business, you are normally aware of this. But even for large FSS organizations, flood attacks can be pretty dangerous if they are targeted against back-end systems by small front-end requests, which trigger complex back-end requests. So, eavesdropping. The vulnerability level of eavesdropping depends very much on the size of the organization. And in many organizations, it is likely that some of the network traffic remains unencrypted. So, budget constraints lead to an unsatisfactory secure physical environment, weak critical network zone encapsulation, and deficient audit and incident response capabilities. And access points placed by malicious insiders within a corporate network could remain undetected, at least in small or medium-sized institutions. One interviewee said that there's a wireless LAN police in their organization which run around with detection tools, but I guess in medium-sized organizations you don't have this. And it's getting even worse if you start a well-targeted eavesdropping attack by, for example, placing a mobile computing device with eavesdropping capabilities inside the network or between the network and a specific host. And while communicating per UMTS with a managing instance, such an attack might remain undetected in large corporations as well. And in addition, some cryptographic mechanisms are often insecurely implemented, enabling an attacker to break end-to-end encryption. So as soon as you are inside an organization, the eavesdropping is a pretty dangerous weapon. Backdoors. The main focus lies on backdoors and software, but you have, of course, the possibility to have backdoors in hardware, which is known as chipping, and it is often not really recognized, especially in network or security-related hardware. So, as an example, network printers can be easily manipulated and are not likely to be checked on a regular basis. So statistics confirm that malicious software can be identified as one of the most dangerous weapons. The main question is how fast systems are patched so that exploitable components are not vulnerable anymore. Successful malicious software attacks, individually or generally targeted, can have an enormous impact, especially on availability and confidentiality. They could also result in indirect vulnerabilities like compromised customer authentication data through phishing or Trojan horses, as well as negative repudiation in the event of successful attack. Unauthorized access. So password authentication is not appropriate, especially on critical systems. But even passwords are still handled inappropriately or given away to colleagues. Single sign-on solutions based on passwords have weaknesses as well. So an extension with smart card capabilities, as often practiced, increases security, but this enhancement is obviously useless when, for example, employees leave their smart cards in the card reader during their lunch break. So biometric mechanisms are still not highly developed enough to solve those problems. And Starbuck will talk about this issue later tonight. And in addition, costs for major authentication mechanisms are often seen as too high by FSS management, particularly in small and medium-sized organizations. So even if there are the best measures available on the market, they are normally not implemented due to too high costs. Okay. Mobile attacks. So mobile computing comes along with an important issue from an attacker perspective. So users of wireless devices can go online and offline easily. And that makes it difficult to trace back attackers to a fixed geographic point. And therefore, attacks over mobile communication systems might become a preferred method in the future. And social engineering is seen as one of the most effective methods to gather authentication or sensitive information about internal structures through, for example, aggregation of publicly available data or insider deception. One interview mentioned the possibility to trick security agents when, for example, external specialists, contractors are known by security agents. In this event, they might still get access to an organization, even though they are not involved into projects anymore. Awareness seminars address social engineering amongst other issues, but circumstantial audit is not possible in most cases due to association objections and legal issues. So, the essence: unauthorized access and malicious software were identified as the most dangerous IO weapons. And as you can see, when you are aware of those two weapons separately, you decrease the vulnerability level of other weapons as well. So unauthorized access and malicious software have to get special attention to decrease the likelihood of successful conducted IO attack.
Thank you for your presentation, but I think we cover more or less only computer infrastructure protection from operation, and the weaponry you present were more or less a tool to support information, because information operation is based asymmetric warfare also, and the way the conflicts are today. So information operation is the way US are using information in Iraq. Like a classical way to use information operation is to drop leaflet in certain way, or in modern way to create a new TV channel, or to create new newspaper like Iraq Today, which spread for more than 1 year over there. To just respond to the question of before, depending the country is different way to have information operation. In Switzerland, oui?
Can I just reply on your first question or on your first statement?
Yeah.
So, that's why I said I focus on hacker and economic warfare. What you said is psychological warfare and
information operation today. If you take into account the conceptuality of information dominant from the US, is combined between diplomatic and military and politic. You know, it's difficult sometimes to dissociate information operation under that aspect. We can consider the decision to send troops in Iraq was information operation aspect also. We can consider the draw of Mohammed was kind of information operation also, and touch the economy side. Is a perception management aspect of information operation. And this was more on critical infrastructure protection, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and thank you. But that's why I said that it's a very broad topic, and if you do a research on it, you have to focus on some aspects. And it's true. I read a book about peace operations in Iraq war from operation, and this is a war. This is not a espionage or something. I mean, of course, on a top country, if you want to take country, you have to do psychic warfare. But I mean, it's an IT security conference, and that's why I focus on security aspects. But very interesting. If you want, can later on about those aspects. Thank you. So, yeah, the weapons, as I mentioned, are unauthorized access and malicious software, and require special attention. The most important weapons. Okay, so next I talked about the countermeasures with the experts, and they say many countermeasures are currently available. In large FSS institutions, a lot of money is allocated to countermeasures, but in small and medium-sized organizations, the trade-off between potential risk and monetary resources available is very high. So, during the interviews, it transpired that most technical countermeasures are already somehow implemented or at least discussed in large FSS organizations. But non-technical countermeasures, such as cyber risk insurance, seem to be not that much recognized in the FSS, probably because they still remove only a small number of risks. Network security. Firewall rules need to be updated and evaluated on a regular basis to ensure that no vulnerabilities exist through outdated permissions. While network-based intrusion detection system capabilities are normally already in place, there seems to be a backlog demand in intrusion prevention and behavior monitoring capabilities. All interviewees agreed that simple access logs are not enough. But unfortunately, intrusion prevention systems and behavior monitoring require enormous setup and administration time and effort. So, allowed or forbidden behaviors are in the majority of cases hard to define because workflows vary in terms of behavior. And even though intrusion prevention systems and behavior monitoring mechanisms are not practical for every workstation, they have potential to be good mechanisms to identify malicious activities performed by insiders, which were the most important or most dangerous threat. So, in this context, one interviewer mentioned that the patching level of network hardware is in many cases up to date, but in some cases outdated. So, as I said, network printers are pretty dangerous, and you heard about Cisco hardware probably, where a lot of vulnerabilities exist. If you don't update those, an attacker who's inside the organization has a lot of potential to gain critical information. So, critical systems without sufficient network security measures in place are generally more vulnerable to misuse and confidential data ship-off. And some very large financial services organizations experiment with honeypots as an instrument for identifying compromised hosts within the corporate network. So, one interviewee mentioned that those honeypots might rather be part of honey-nets, which are already installed in diverse organizations across different industries for the general purpose of learning and analyzing attackers' activities. Another interviewee said, which is very interesting, that there are too many other problems which have to be solved before it makes sense to implement such measures. So, but however, honeypots obtain little attention, even though they could be a good extension to intrusion prevention systems and a good mechanism to disguise the real network topology, which goes along with defense and depth as well. Risk management and personal security. Risk assessment is seen as the initial step for security. There's a general trend to institutionalization, formalization, and standardization of risk management methods. So security policies need to be developed based on the risks identified and enforced utilizing compliance management mechanisms. And to counter threats arising from insiders, personal security is very important. One interviewee told me that in some organizations there are some methods next to technical measures like employee screening, including criminal records and reference checking, awareness seminars, and methods to improve employee satisfaction. This is necessary, but mostly not enough